Hello and welcome back to the Essentially Sports channel. My name is Ben Pfeiffer, and I'm very excited for an exclusive interview with Santa Clara men's basketball head coach Herb Sendek, who is so generously taking some time with us today to talk about the NBA draft, his program. Coach, how you doing this morning? Thanks so much for
Doing
taking some time.
no, I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be together with you, Ben.
For sure. And before we talk about some of the current happenings with your program and the players, just wanted to talk about you for a second. You've been with Santa Clara for quite a long time now, have reached 20 plus wins in 6 of the last 7 seasons with, of course, an NCAA tournament appearance this last year. So what goes into building a mid-major program that sustains long-term success like this and not necessarily is one that has a good season or two and then isn't relevant really?
Yeah. Well, first we don't try to label ourselves or get caught up into that kind of compartmentalization. But I think it all starts with the culture of your program, the people in your program, and we've been blessed to have a staff that's been together now for quite some time. Tremendous support from our administration, from our alumni and our boosters. To sustain success in any organization, it takes really committed, talented individuals working together in a place that has the right culture. And I think that foundation has allowed us to continue to grow.
Absolutely. And that winning culture has been clear over the last couple years. And one of the other interesting things about the Santa Clara program is you've produced some really quality NBA players over the last couple years, notably Jalen Williams of the Oklahoma City Thunder and Brandon Pochemski of the Golden State Warriors. And for Santa Clara, who historically haven't produced a ton of great NBA players, aside from players like Steve Nash, obviously, a long time ago. What goes into identifying and then developing these talented players into eventual, not only NBA prospects, but really good NBA players?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a little bit lucky, but we work hard as a staff to try to identify young men that we think not only fit our program but have outstanding potential. And then we just roll up our sleeves day by day and work as hard as we can to get better, to learn and to improve. And the guys you mentioned, as well as others, have great work ethics. They were very dedicated to their craft. Um, they were process oriented and ultimately had great breakthroughs and made it to the NBA.
For sure. And when you're looking for that potential in these young people, whether it's character or on the court, what are some things you're looking for to maybe identify some of these gems that other schools and other programs are missing out on? And obviously, y'all are benefiting from.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that other schools are missing out. I mean, these guys are recruited, and ultimately, we have to convince them that Santa Clara is the right fit. But to your point, we really value guys who do have great character, who are good people. That's kind of a non-negotiable in our recruiting process. Um, and then we look probably for the same things that everybody else covets, right? Are they passionate about the game? Do they love the game of basketball? Because if you love it, you're much more likely to put in the work, right? um, do you have a great work ethic? Are you tough? Do you have a great feel for the game? Do you know how to play with others? And then what is your skill level? Because at the end of the day, we do play with a ball, and if you could dribble, pass, and shoot, if you have an advanced skill level, obviously that's a great advantage.
For sure. And I'd love to ask you about Santa Clara's next likely first round pick, Alan Graves, who was a redshirt freshman this year and had a phenomenal season. One of the most impressive players in the entire country from a statistical perspective, and just had a great year overall. So, when it came to Alan Graves, what did you see in him that made you believe that he could be a super impactful player for you and obviously develop into an NBA player for someone who wasn't, a 5-star recruit coming out of high school.
Yeah, I could almost just take what I previously said and use it to answer this question. Allen is a phenomenal human being. He's going to enhance the culture of any organization that he's a part of, right? He is somebody who has a tremendous toughness quotient, right? He can play physical basketball. He gets after rebounds and loose balls. He's also somebody who has a great feel for the game, a high basketball IQ. He picks things up easily. He sees things in real time. He fits well with other good players. And then, of course, he has a high skill level. He can shoot. He's a very good passer, can put the ball on the floor. So everything we previously talked about, you could attach Allen's name to it very easily. And at the end of the day, Allen is a winner. He won multiple state high school championships, and he helped lead us to the NCAA tournament. He's a winner.
Absolutely. And as someone who works in the draft space, something you hear about Allen constantly is just how good of a guy he is and how much he uplifts people and helps build that program. So when you talk about culture, when you talk about personality, what are some of the specific things that Allen Graves is going to bring to an NBA building, an NBA locker room that maybe most people wouldn't know just based on his on-court presence?
Yeah, well, he's a great teammate. He cares about other people. He'll be the first one to pick someone up when they're down. He'll be the first one to cheer for a teammate and celebrate someone else's success. He's going to do all the right things. He's never going to be a distraction. He's going to bring a beautiful spirit and a positive energy to everything he does.
It's important, of course, that Graves is good on the court as well, and he was a phenomenal player this season, especially on the defensive end. He was one of the most prolific event creators in the entire country. So what to you goes into Allen being such an excellent defender, and how do you see him fitting in at the NBA level on the defensive end?
Well, he's committed to winning, and he understands to do that you have to defend. And so he prioritizes it. It's important to him. He has phenomenal hands that really help him on defense. He also has very good anticipatory skills. So his rebounding numbers, his steal numbers, his block shot numbers on the defensive end are very impressive. And once again, his knowledge of the game, knowing how to play, his preparation, all enhance him on the defensive end of the floor.
Graves played a good amount of center for Santa Clara for y'all this season. How do you feel like he held up in that role? Because, most people are projecting him as more of a power forward or a wing at the NBA level. So what allowed him to hold up at center for you, even though he's not 7 feet tall? And do you think he's going to be able to do that in the NBA at all?
Yeah, once again, I think one of his great assets is his versatility. We don't really get caught up in what position someone is. On the defensive end of the floor, you have to be able to guard multiple positions, sometimes even on the same possession. If you get caught in rotation or you're switching or you get cross-matched in transition, you have to be able to guard different positions no matter who you are, in all likelihood, right? And then offensively, you could call him a center, you can call him a forward. I don't know that it matters because, we try to take advantage of his skill set. So I think the way the game is played today, versatility is at a premium. And, we don't gain any great advantage of trying to pigeonhole guys in a position.
For sure. It's so valuable to have players who can match up with different kinds of players and execute different kinds of schemes. And that's especially prevalent in the NBA playoffs, which are currently going on. Hopefully, Allen will have a chance to participate in the playoffs in due time. So those skills, versatility, physicality, feel for the game. Do you feel those will make Allen an effective player in the postseason? And how do you see him impacting and helping a team eventually, hopefully, win championships down the line in the NBA?
Yeah, no, I think everything we just talked about will translate, and I think it'll, be effective in the playoffs. You watch the playoffs right now, and sometimes it's very noticeable how physical it is, right? And so his toughness and physicality should play well into that. And once again, because his mindset is about the team, about winning, he's going to do whatever he can to impact winning. Regardless of what the coach or the organization asks him to do, he's going to be all in about winning.
Allen has a ton of positive qualities that we've talked about already. Of course, like every other prospect, there's going to be improvement areas. So first, how did you see Allen progress throughout that freshman season, or I guess his redshirt freshman season, the season where
Mm-hmm.
he played? And where do you see as his major improvement areas in the NBA to ultimately reach his ceiling of being a great, impactful, winning player?
Yeah, I don't think there's one or two areas. I think with young players, it's important that they continue to advance on a broad-based front. There's no area of the game that, should be put on a mantle and left alone because it's complete. You want to continue to um, improve in every possible way. It's always possible to get incrementally better, and we want to do that with any player for that matter, especially young players on a broad-based front.
Absolutely. And Allen is going to be off to the NBA. And your team last year was pretty young, a lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores. And one of your only other graduating seniors is Elijah Mahi, a really impressive physical ball handling wing. What do you see as his long-term potential, whether, it's in any pro league, the NBA, and what do you think he could eventually bring to a team in the future?
Yeah, Elijah is tremendously talented. To your point, Ben, a big, strong ball handling guard, capable of scoring and making plays for others as a playmaker. Um, he has some unique uh, capabilities for a guard his size. And I would not be surprised if he too can work his way into the NBA.
What are some of those unique capabilities you mentioned, the things that set him apart from maybe other players of his similar body type or height or things like that?
Yeah, well, I think one thing that comes to mind is his ability to draw a second defender off the bounce in the post, um, and then when he does, he has tremendous vision, and obviously can help the 4 versus 3 attack off the ball once he does that. But he can also score the ball. He makes big shots. He gets to the paint. Um, and if he has a matchup advantage over a smaller guard, which is often the case, he's able to exploit that very effectively.
You kind of answered it right there, but I wanted to ask just more pointedly, what are some of the advantages of having a player of, wing forward size, but legitimate guard skill, especially at the college level where
Yeah.
there just aren't a lot of players like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think positional size can be an asset. It's not a necessary condition. Obviously, there's players who are below average in size at a position and yet very effective in what they do. So, like anything, you try to take advantage of your gifts and your strengths. And but I think all things being equal, the NBA loves guys with great length. Everyone's quick to talk about standing reach and wingspan and height and those kind of things are used to project somebody's future in the NBA, their potential.
For sure. And I think Mahi definitely has that potential with his size and with some of his skills. Wanted to quickly hit on the future of your program, the transfer portal. Obviously, it is such a transfer portal, NIL heavy era, but Santa Clara has been, you guys have been really, really effective at retaining and developing talent. So, what goes into not only, convincing players to come play for you and to come develop, but obviously, continuing to build a winning, sustainable culture without overhauling and rebuilding the whole roster every year.
Yeah, I mean, I think any coach will tell you that retention is important, right? And it is for us, certainly, as many guys as we can retain year to year. That's to our advantage. Obviously, in this universe, I don't know that that's 100% possible for anyone. It seems that each team, or almost each team, loses somebody each year. 2 years ago, we retained I guess it was 3 years ago now, we retained everybody, but I think those are one-offs. And so we try to retain as many guys as we possibly can, and knowing that, we'll probably in any given year have to replace a few guys earlier than we'd like.
Absolutely. It's just a reality of college basketball these days. And when you're looking in the transfer portal, since there are just so many players, how do you narrow down the kind of players that you want to add? Is there a specific skill set or body type or intangible that you look for to kind of narrow down the very large pool of players that are in the portal every year?
Yeah, it takes a lot of legwork, takes a lot of homework, because it's not as simple as, just identifying the guys who have the best numbers, or maybe the best reputations, because those guys could be cost prohibitive. They could command money that isn't realistic for us. And so it takes a lot of due diligence, watching a lot of different players to identify guys who not only could fit our program as players, but that we could actually get to come to Santa Clara. It's not as easy as saying, hey, well, this guy averaged 20 points a game at Duke, so let's go get him. Those guys would be hard to get, right? And so, not that anyone's easy to get, but you know what I'm saying? You have to find guys sometimes that aren't as obvious, because the most obvious guys right now are commanding, incredible sums of money.
Something that the Santa Clara program has had lately that a lot of teams in the West Coast Conference and a lot of conferences throughout the country don't have is real size and height. Obviously, Bucky Aboye this last season, and in the transfer portal, you landed C.D. Gay from Arizona, 6'11". So what's the value of just to me it seems obvious, but I feel like more and more teams these days are going away from maybe small ball, spaced out shooting that was so popular 10, 12 years ago, and really going for these bigger teams. So what's the value in a guy like C.D. Gay and just having these big, giant players that can probably change the game for you?
Yeah, no, certainly rim protection and scoring around the basket. Those two things win, and those are non-negotiable. Rebounding wins, and to your point, the game, probably like the fashion industry, goes in ebbs and flows, and small ball is really impactful, but then a team like Michigan turns around and wins the national championship playing three big guys, and so okay, let's get bigger than we've been. That seems to be better. And so fat tie, skinny tie, things fade, come and go, but what wins doesn't change. What wins
Absolutely.
doesn't change, whether you're big or slow, whether you're good looking or ugly, you got to rebound. There's some non-negotiables.
Absolutely. All the things we've been talking about: rebounding, feel for the game, work ethic. And obviously, Alan Graves is getting all of the attention right now. But is there anybody on your roster now who you think has some underrated pro potential that people aren't really thinking about? Whether it's C.D. Gay or another transfer or someone on the roster, just someone who people maybe aren't thinking about that they should be thinking about heading into next year.
I'll go Bill Belichick on you and say, we'll see.
I like that answer, keeping the people waiting. But just wanted to quickly end off with some of your thoughts on the future of not only your program, but the West Coast Conference in general. You're signed through 2030 after just, a couple really impressive, successful seasons. But the West Coast Conference is going to look different than it's really looked in recent history with Gonzaga moving on. Randy Bennett is at Arizona State. So do these shifts in the West Coast Conference change your approach or thought process at all when it comes to long-term building? I see you're shaking your head already.
No, not at all. I mean, our focus is on Santa Clara. We have to focus on ourselves, and we're going to play a great non-conference schedule. Our league will continue to be very competitive. So, teams may come and go off your schedule, whether it's conference or non-conference. The constant is yourself, and that's where our focus always is.
Absolutely. And all of this hopefully will lead to another NCAA tournament appearance and many more. Obviously, the game this year didn't go how y'all hoped, but what did you learn from this NCAA tournament experience as a team, as a program that you can take forward to next season and just the future seasons?
Well, I don't know, because each year is unique to itself. We're not going to have the same team as last year. We're going to have guys who weren't even in the building when we played in the tournament last year. So, I don't know what the learning carryover will be. The guys who played, I'm sure picked up some things, but this year's team will have its own journey, its own path, and it'll be relatively independent of what happened last year.
We are all excited to follow that journey, see how Santa Clara performs next year, and see if they can produce, if you'll have any future NBA players that you're not letting on, but will eventually pop up. But Coach Herb Sendek, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us at Essentially Sports. We will see you all next time.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me, Ben. I appreciate it.